Verily, verily. And 447. 447. Higher ground. 447.
Every day, still praying as I long
pray over the offering for us this evening, please.
Thank you, Father, for your offering. Just pray, Lord, you will bless it. Bless those it goes to help. Lord, is giving them a cheerful heart.
All right, that didn't work. There's a few things not working tonight. A bit slow on the live stream. That's why I think it's up. Right? Are we live streaming at the moment? We are. We're going to mix things up just a little bit tonight from our normal routine. We're going to just realise that we got a quirk in the system with the live streaming. If we do the normal system, there's a lot of downtime for those watching on live. So there's the audience and the prayer requests and the thing. So we're going to do the prayer requests after the preaching this morning. Come on, Ben. So we're going to we'll do the prayer requests after our Psalm 127. We were going to have a video, and we will have that. It's on the back if you want to watch it on the back, is what Cottle was saying. I don't know, that's a bit... is that all right if you guys want to watch it on the back? Is that all right? You just have to crane your neck. Yeah, it is crystal clear. It's from Brother Pinero. Those who are watching at home, they won't have an issue because it'll be completely clear. This is from Brother Pinero. This is just an update from what they're doing there in Vanuatu. He's been hiking up into the mountains. And this is the one here.
Hi, you're here with me in the mountains of Big Bay Santo, a village called Vunikarakara, one of the furthest villages in the jungle. It's taken us 8 grueling hours, crossing rivers 27 times, climbing up mountains to get here. And we were actually going to be here in May to open up the brand new church that had just been built. Now, as a result of the cyclone, you can see what is left of the old church building here. And you can see all the benches here. There was a building right here where I'm standing on this site here. You can see here is where the gospel was being preached. And the building actually flew down into that valley down there. and praise the Lord, didn't hit anybody, didn't kill anybody, but definitely will and truly destroy the building. So our plans are to rebuild. If by God's grace and mercy we can see that accomplished. We've actually cut, just the other day, the boys cut all this ground here and extended the building this way. And the concept is to now put the building facing against the wind rather than away from the wind. As you can see, there's a valley down here. You can see a bit of the village. Everything was completely decimated. Actually looks like a volcano exploded here, or some sort of bomb. Thank you so much for your prayers and your support to be able to help us to reach these people with the light of the gospel. Here we are walking back from Hurst. The boys taking the hill, heading back home, ready for, it takes about 8 or 9 hours to get up here. I reckon, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours to get back. It's all downhill. Still hard though, and very slippery. You can see the village in the background there as we head home.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wait for that screen up there. All right. Yeah, so Brother Pinero there, quite a unique, interesting ministry that he has there, climbing up to the mountains. And we can post that link to that. It's on YouTube. We'll just post it to the WhatsApp group chat. So if you want to watch that without putting a kink in your neck, and watch it maybe on your own iPad or on your phone or at home, just you can put that link. Cottle's doing that right now, and put that link up on the WhatsApp chat, so you can view that afterwards if you want to see that again. But it's amazing work going up into the mountains, 8-hour hike up and 4-hour hike back down. Little village up there, that tiny little church, and that great little pulpit right there, and blown away. But I mean, that's it. That's the village, and they go up there and they preach the gospel and meet up there in the mountains, and then head all the way back down there. So a great work that they're doing there in the island of Vanuatu, the islands rather of Vanuatu. Psalm 127. 127. Again, we'll do our prayer requests after this. So we'll mix things up just a little bit this evening. Psalm 127. We'll read it, then we'll get some feedback. Did Gnomes just give you the... All right, maybe you can run around with that. Yes, that'd be great. That'll get some voices. This will try and not get rid of the dead air, because those at home can hear the microphone, and those that are online, but they can't hear it when you talk. It's quiet. So Connor's going to run around with the microphone there to pick it up. Psalm 127. This is a song of degrees for Solomon. So David has written this for his son Solomon. Not the only psalm that we've come across that is written for Solomon. Verse 1 says, "Except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Lo, children are inherited to the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of the mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate." Psalm 127. Before I go with my notes here this evening, Connor's raring and ready to go here to run back and forth. Who's got some feedback? Some comments, queries, questions, observations? I can't remember all the things that we used to say. That seemed like a long time ago. You have read Psalm 127. Josh is over here.
the children are a heritage of the Lord, and then it talks about as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of thy youth. And just for me, God really spoke to me through this, just the importance of the children that God's blessed me with. They actually belong to God, but He's entrusted them to me, and how important it is just to bring them up spiritually and with God's word. And just like the mighty man, I have to shoot these young girls off one day, and I don't want them to be ashamed when they go out into the world on their own. So that's just something that God showed me through this chapter.
Very nice. Very good. Any other comments, feedbacks, observations, insights? Yeah, it's a bit slow tonight. It's
One, whatever you do in life, if you do it in your own flesh, it will fail. Always have to rely on the Lord. And that's a great verse for anything you do.
We're going to deal with that a little bit more tonight. Except
Thank
the
you.
Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. Okay, Cole's having great fun back there. He's zooming in on your Bible, so just hopefully, hopefully brought your KJV one tonight. Any other comments, observations? I trust this wasn't the first time you've read this. You read it in advance of tonight. Yeah, sure, yes. Next week, just in case you're not aware, we'll be in Psalm 128. Just in case you wanted to read in advance and prepare. So 127. Any other feedback? That's it. Just 2 comments tonight. Is that you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
My comment tonight is just on the same as Blue said. The first verse there. It's just as you all know that we had a breakdown this week with the chipper and stuff, and I was thinking when I was reading this that unless you actually depend upon God completely in every area of your life, stuff can fall apart at any time. Your life can just fall apart, and that's where we have to put our complete trust in God, like for everything. And I was just thinking about that as I was rebuilding my chipper this week. But yeah, now it's a blessing. God's very good.
Amen. Very good. Any other comments tonight? Feedback? Thoughts? All right. I have to prime the pump after being away for so long. It's bit short. What, sorry? Stage fright. Is that, maybe it is stage fright. You didn't have this before you went away on speaking of the live stream. All right, Psalm 127. I'll give you my notes here. Will you? Okay, go ahead, Rhiannon.
A little bit of stage fright, though, we'll be honest. For verse 2, it is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Because we're not meant to stay up late and think about everything that's playing out in our lives and wake up early and constantly be in thought and worry and fret and eat the bread of sorrows and just feel like, oh, woe is me, what is going on, and just constantly thinking and worrying. For the Lord gives his beloved sleep, so he's just reassuring us that we are his beloved, he loves us, and we're meant to be putting all of our cares, all of our thoughts, all of our worries, anything upon God, because he cares for us, and we're meant to just have that peace that passes all understanding for whatever might or could or has gone wrong, and that we're meant to just rest our eyes and just go to sleep and just trust him fully. Amen. And not stay up and worry constantly.
Yep. We'll be dealing with that tonight as well. I think over this way.
Yeah, I was just going to say at the end of verse 2, so he giveth his beloved sleep. And I look at myself with my life, and I look at everything that's going on in the world at this present time, and every night I go to bed at the same time, and I have this incredibly deep sleep and wake up at exactly the same time every morning, and it's incredible, you know, and how God protects you throughout the night, and always pray for protection, but it's just amazing the way that he looks after all of us as we sleep, irrespective of what's going on in the world.
Yeah. if you remember back in Psalm, just reminded me, Psalm 3. I think it's Psalm 3. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. And that's what the psalmist says there in Psalm 3, verse 5. I laid me down to sleep. I awoke. God sustained me during the night. He does. Absolutely. Sleep is good. At the right time. Not now. Tomorrow. All right. Okay, Psalm 127 here. Psalm 127. It's a psalm written here, a song of degrees for Solomon. And I've just given it into two simple breakdowns. So the first two verses is build the house, and the last three verses is furnish the house. Build the house, furnish the house. And and in that order as well, it lays it down. Build the house first, furnish the house after. A lot of times the children, people are trying to do the children first, and then they try and build the house after them. When you do it outside the way that God intended things to work, man, it complicates things. Life doesn't need to be as complicated as we make it. And a lot of people have complicated life by trying to reverse it and ended up with children before they've even built a home and a house. And there's a verse in Proverbs actually that comes to my mind. Make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. That seems just like the wording is slightly wrong there, but it's the same principle. Is that you go out, and when those pilgrims came, and the people and the early settlers and we didn't have pilgrims. What do we have? Settlers, convicts. Yeah, we had convicts. Yes. What did they call them? Were they settlers? They weren't settlers. Pioneers. First settlers. First colony and all that. And when they came, what were they doing? They were clearing the land first. There's no use spending the whole summer cutting down trees and building the log house. And then going, right, I need to go plant the corn, and I need to go plant the potatoes, and I need to go plant the veggie garden. By that, it's too late. No, you've got to make yourself fit in the field first, prepare that, and then go build your house. You might be living in a tent for a while, but there's an order to how things ought to work. God's order is always the right way to do things, and it's first build the house, and then afterwards furnish the house. And the furnishing of that home is done with the children. When I was a kid, my notes here I've preached from this passage before, and I love this passage in the first two verses. I was looking over my notes, and it reminded me that when I was a kid, we used to have this toy box. And on that toy box, it was a Wiccan toy box, and it had a clown on it, on the front of it, and there was like a big basket opened up. And in that box was it was where all the loose toys just got thrown in there. During school holidays, summer holidays particularly being extra long, and children at home being extra annoying to parents, the mother of the household, some of you may know my mother, she'd send us down. This was in Dargan Street, as my memories. We were living in Dargan Street here in Mount Helena. She'd send us down to the room to clean out the toy box. And so we would go trudging down to the hall, to the bedroom, and think that we've just received the worst job imaginable until you tip over the toy box. And as soon as you tipped over that toy box as a kid, out came all manner of things you haven't seen for a very long time. I'm not just talking socks and jocks. I mean toys as well. And then you get the army men that came out, and you'd get the G.I. Joe we had back then. We had Transformers, and I had Transformers, and lots of pieces to the Transformers. Some would say more than meets the eye. For those that are from that era. But there was little pieces that were all over the place, and you'd find, that's where the missile went, and I lost the missile, and then you find the missile, and all of a sudden you're playing Transformers for a little while. And then, like everybody's toy box, it always had Lego in it. And you tip it out and you find Lego and little bits more of Lego, and all of a sudden you're building stuff. And there's something in a person to build. to desire to build. I know my kids were watching the Lego series that was on TV. We'd record it and watch it. Man, they built amazing things, like incredible things, pirate ships and cities and all these things that they built with these Legos. And lots of fun. And then you find the kids down there playing with their Lego, building stuff. And Zach got gifted, inherited Joel's Lego, so he's got all this Lego, and Ben's down there, and he plays with the Lego and building stuff and building. And people like to build. I remember as a kid out here, Josh's memories will be on this one, there used to be, the garden bed out here. So it's now parking, but it was garden bed back in the day. And when I was in primary school, hours upon hours were spent in that garden bed building roads for cars, and this elaborate city was built into those garden beds and under the bushes and in the sand, ups and over and cars and amazing tracks that were made in there to build it. Now today the kids are still building. You go up the back, they build forts, and they've got their immaculately laid out rocks, and the leaves are all pushed aside, and the honky nuts are over here and this, and they're up there and they love it. They play in this modern time, we like to call it our naturescape. It's just the back of the property, but it sounds good on the paperwork when we say they're playing in their naturescape. The government likes those words. So they're up there playing amongst the leaves, and they're playing in the rocks and building. I went to Josh's house one time, picking on him again, when he was living in Marcus Street, and I probably would have been Zach's age. And his two older sisters were there, and I remember walking from his bedroom back, and if my memory is correct, your bedroom walking down the hallway was on the left, and your sister's bedroom were on the right, halfway along. That's how it was. We were walking back, and their door was open, of his older sisters, who were young teenagers at that particular time, or in around that age bracket, 13, 14. They had all their dolls, all their teddy bears, everything that they could collect, and there was this elaborate wedding that had been created in their bedroom, and I think one of the teddies was marrying the other teddies and the doll, and they were performing this ceremony. So even the guys might be out in the dirt, but the girls are building stuff as well. But building doesn't stop when you go through life, because it just changes. You get to college, you're building financial freedoms, you're building a reputation, you're building your grades, and you're building something to offer to an employer at some stage, and then you go on from that, and you're building relationships, and you're building reputations, and then you get married, and you're building a home, and you're on it goes, building a career, building a business, you're building all the way through life. In fact, it's like life is one big construction zone. It's like there's always the black and yellow tape around someone's life, and it's always a hard hat area, and it's always got the witches' cones out in the person's life, because something is always being built. Now the question is, who's building? Who does the building on those things? There's three options. Someone else can build into a person's life. You put a kid in front of a TV, there will be character that will be built into him that is put there from someone else. If you just listen to the worldly music all the time that's on the radio, there will be someone else that is instilling into your values. I'm not going to jump into the Black Lives Matter, but I am surprised by the amount of people that jump on board with the Black Lives Matter that really have never spoken about before and really don't know much about the actual issues that are at play, and yet people are changing their Instagrams to black, people are doing all these things, and they're like, we're on board with this. You're on board with what? What exactly are you on board with? We're just on board with everything. It's like they don't actually know what they're doing. They've just been influenced by the media, and they've been influenced by their friends on Facebook, and they're jumping on board with this, and this is across the board. They don't really know what the issues are. People are influenced. People are building sometimes your own opinion about things without you realizing it. You can go on, and the buildings that take place in people's lives. So you can do it yourself, or someone else can do it. You can do it yourself, and people are building up their own reputation, and people like to take their own life into their hands, and they just become responsible for everything, and they do it themselves. and they're building a career and their family and their relationships all in their own strength. So you can build things in your own. Your life can be a building to yourself. But I'm pretty sure what David is saying to Solomon is exactly that he's warning Solomon not to build in his own strength. Because the person that builds in his own strength, he says, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. And so he's saying to his son, you're going to be very tempted to go out and try life by your own ability and your own strength. He says, you can't do that. There's a vanity that comes from that, from doing it in your own strength. And so he says, be wary of that. When I went to the men's advance, I think I've spoken about the men's advance before. In the US, Stillwater Bible Baptist Church in Stillwater, Oklahoma, had a men's advance. 1,500 men would come from all over the states, mainly from the Midwest states, and there'd be 1,500 people in this massive big tent that they would set up. After I left, it even got bigger, where they couldn't even fit them in the tent, and they had to rent the state fairgrounds there in Stillwater to get this massive couple of thousands of people men that would come there, eating, singing, preaching. It was just a wonderful weekend. Friday night, Saturday, and they had like 1,000 pounds, I think is what they always said, of meat that they would smoke, and it probably even went up from that. And it was just a manly men's meeting of men, meat, and yeah, that's it, preach on. It was good though. It was very good, especially for a starving college student who ate once a day. It was like, man, this is good food. So, but it was wonderful. And on the 2004 meeting, it was going somewhere was the theme, going somewhere. And Brother Hardy, who is the pastor of the church and the host, his church hosted it all and put it all together, he said this in saying about going somewhere. He said a lot of people live life like a roller coaster, where they love the highs and the lows, and they love the ups and then the downs and the loops and the spins, and everyone's looking for the thrill. But he says, you ever think about a roller coaster where you get off? You get off at the exact same place that you got on. And people live life like that. I think Job said it, naked came I out of the world and naked shall I return. It's like you're going to end life the same way that you ended it. And people live this life and they go through all the thrills, and at the very end they get off at the same place with nothing achieved. It's a vain and empty life. And he says, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. The third one is God. God is the one who ought to build it. And when God is the superintendent of our life, there's three things that we can notice very quickly. When God is the superintendent of our life, there's things that are noticed from this. One, there's progress. Progress is what happens when God does the building. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. So there's progress. A city, what is a city made up of? Multiple houses. It's really what a city is. The more there's houses, the bigger that there is the city. So he says, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. So there's progress that takes place when God is doing the building in this. And so Solomon is being encouraged by his father. Let God do the building. He'll progress things along. Instead of trying to take it into your own hands to try and build it, trying to build your family, build a relationship, build a career, build a name. Instead of trying to take that all into your own hands, how about you just let God be the one to handle that? Give it all back to Him. He'll progress you along. God knows how to be progressive in the right way. He can. He says, except the Lord keep the house, and except the Lord keep the city. Build the house and keep the city. The second one here, very quickly, is protection. Protection. It is, except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. When God's building something, there's protection for what is being built. If you build your own house, there are people that will build their own house, they won't get any money from the government, but there are those that are building their own house. Well, when something goes wrong, when something goes wrong when you build your house and the door is crooked, the windows don't quite shut, do you know who you call? You know who you have to go back to? You. You have to go back there because you're building it yourself. So when something's wrong, you're the one who has to fix it. But when someone else is building your house, you've contracted it out to someone, and the doors don't line up and don't close, and the windows don't shut properly, or the cement slab is not thick enough in whatever place, and the roof is leaking, you can pick up the phone and call the builder and say, there's a problem with your building. I'm living in it, and I'm paying you, but you're the builder. And so you can go back to them, and they will fix the problems. The thing when people are trying to do their own life and trying to make life work in their own strength, when life goes wrong, you have to fix it yourself. But the wonderful thing, when you give it to God, you say, God, I'm going to let you build my life. I'm going to let you build my career, build the reputation, build the name, build my family. God, I'm going to let you do it. When things go wrong and problems arise, and whatever you're doing and whatever path God sends you down, there will be problems. But whatever it is, you can go back to God and say, God, you're the one building my life. There's problems here, and I'm just going to give them to you because this building is yours, and my life is yours, and my family is yours, and my career is yours, and my reputation is yours. God, it's all yours. And so there is this watchman that watches over the city, and this watchman we learnt from Psalms a few weeks ago now, he doesn't sleep. He doesn't slumber. He doesn't doze off. He's always on the job. He's always alert, and he's ready to help and assist those issues. Well, what happens then when you can then pass your problems from your building off to the one who is protecting it? Well, guess what you get to do? It says it in verse 2. Exactly right. Catherine's right. This. Slumber. You can sleep. You know what Solomon found out when he went away from God? He said, all my money, all my wealth, all my business, all of my activities, he says, I actually can't sleep. He says that in Ecclesiastes. He says that you're staying awake all night wondering about all these different things. You know what Solomon was doing then? He was trying to do it all in his own strength. When that time when he walked away from God, troubles and anxieties and depression and sorrows and the vanity of life overwhelmed his soul. Sleep went from him. I like the testimony of Dusty to say, you know what? I can go to bed and I can pillow my head and I can sleep. Because there are a lot of people out there who simply can't sleep because when they lay down and their body tries to switch off, their mind doesn't. Beyond Blue, Black Dog, all those depression people are always saying, one of the signs of depression and anxiety and troubles is that the mind is always racing. And yet the psalmist is saying, oh, I didn't have that problem because I'm not sitting up worried about my life and all the problems that my life is facing because God is doing the building in my life. He's the superintendent. He's in charge of it. And I'm just giving it to him and I'm going to sleep and he's the one staying up all night watching the city. There's great comfort for a Christian to simply give their troubles to God, to know that he's in charge, not arbitrarily, but in every aspect of life to say, God, this is yours. My life is yours. This church is yours. The school is yours. The career is yours. The family is yours. Except the Lord keep the city. They labor in vain that build it. There is peace is the third one there. There's progress and protection and peace that comes when God is building. And he's talking about a family in this particular chapter, and Psalm 128 builds on that, as you see about the fruit for the wife shall be a fruitful vine and children about like olive plants around about thy table. 127, 128 to do with the family says God is the one that must build this. And so many people are trying to build relationships and families in their own strength. Man, let God, if you're young here and you're not married, there are those that are here and coming up to marriage age, man, let God lead you to the person that he wants you to marry. Don't try and put that all together in your own strength and in your own labors, because there are many young people who are troubled because relationships come and go and it's broken and they're on to the next broken relationship, and the heart and the anguish that come about from this. Solomon is saying, man, just let God do this. Just rest in God. He is always awake. He's always alert. The verse that Josh likes to quote as well, and I like it as well, out of Asa, his eyes are running to and fro. He knows where the good men are. He knows where the good women are. He can bring people together. Just trust him. Give it to God. Get busy serving God now. Let God build the house. Because if you do it in your own strength, there's going to be troubles, and you're going to have to fix those troubles because you made those troubles. Man, just give it to God. Let him take it. Let him handle it. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. It is vain. It really is. It's vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows. Man, you're trying to be up late, trying to fix all the problems in your life. You have to rise early, trying to fix all the problems in your life. That's not how God intends a person to live. Zach was doing this in school with his schoolwork, in his health class, on Beyond Blue and all the depression and anxiety and these things that he was going through. And I was saying to him, I said, do you know how you fix depression? All because it's going about suicide and the troubled minds and can't sleep and all of these things. I said, do you know what the Bible's solution for all of that is? Is joy. In the presence of God is fullness of joy. If a person has joy, you know what they don't want to do? Commit suicide. You don't see joyful people committing suicide. That's not being blasé, but that's the truth. Joyful people don't commit suicide. He offers the joy of the Lord. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, goodness. God offers something much better than happiness. He gives joy. And a joyful person can rest in God and go to sleep. Then he says in verse 3 and 4 and 5, I'll say this very quickly. He says, children then, that's when children come into the home. The home has been built. You let God build the home. And now it's progressed to marriage, and that's where children are honorable in marriage. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord. God gives them. The fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. There's a blessing in having children young. That's what that verse is saying. He says, have children young and grow up together. And we have people today that don't want to have kids until they're like 40 years of age, get a career. And God is saying, you know what? That's worldly wisdom. There's a wisdom about having children young. They're wonderful, the children of the youth. Happy is the man who hath his quiver full of them. The quiver is the bag that would fling over their neck and over their shoulder. It's where the arrows would go in. He says, blessed is the man whose quiver is full of these arrows, these children. And as Josh says, one day he's got those daughters and they're going to be shot out of his household. But there is a time that they're in the household and they're arrows that he is polishing. That's what Isaiah makes mention about polishing the arrows, what God has given to you. Happy is the man who hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. It's a wonderful chapter, and we have to race through it because there's so much information in there and time gets away from us. But go back and study it and know this. Who, or at least ask yourself this question. Who is building in your life? Is it you? Is it someone else? Or is it God? Because David says to Solomon, man, just let God, just give it over to God. Your whole entire life. Let him build, and there's progress. You don't have to worry about that. It will go from a house to a city. There's protection. God will protect it. And ultimately, there is a peace that you can sleep right on through the night without all the troubles that everyone else has, because you're walking with God. Progress, protection, and peace out of Psalm 127. Read Psalm 128 next week and be prepared. Fruitful vines and olive trees round about thy table and all those good things. That sounds luxurious is what it sounds like, and that's exactly what he is portraying, Psalm 128. We're going to take some prayer requests tonight and have a time of prayer before we finish up this evening. Any prayer requests tonight? I have the prayer cards actually. I came prepared. Zach, you want to come and hand these out?